So, due to technical difficulties, because I switched mics yesterday and forgot to switch it back, I started up the video prematurely. So, we're just going to hang out here for a few minutes and see who shows up. Please let me know when you get here. So, and then I'll begin the whole thing again in a minute. We had like 50 people and I totally blew it. Yeah, well, the problem was me, of course. Yesterday, I used this mic. So when I write, I use this mic because it's right here and I can speak right into it. And I do a lot of dictation when I write. And I just want to say that yesterday, I finished the movie, last chapter, sent it off to the editor, and then I'm going to get it back again. So I switched mics and I forgot to put it back. Thanks for welcoming me back. Thanks for being here, everybody. We're going to wait another minute or two, and then I'm going to start at the beginning. And at some point, before this goes out into YouTube land with recorded live, we're going to trim it. That's what I'm going to try to say. Hi. Thanks, everybody. Hi, Willie, Catherine, Colleen, Ellen, Lee, Catherine, Rosa, Willie, Jim, Colleen, Ellen, Sue, Kristen, Summer, Lee, Sue. That was wicked funny. It was wicked funny for you guys. Not so much funny for me. I was like, oh my God. So I can tell you that I'm going to wait another minute or so and then we're going to begin again. And thanks for liking this video. All right. We are up to 22 people. We'll see if others come back in a minute. All right. Fortunately, today's whole thing, that took me an extra 16 minutes of your time. So here we go. Ta-da! Blessings to everybody. Thanks, everybody, for your patience today. And welcome to Not Church Sundays on this auspicious day in the USA, where our nation holds its breath collectively for the coming week. Let's not do that. Let's center ourselves together in breath. Maybe stay busy, do your thing, take a break from the news. Be sure to breathe. Be sure to stay busy. So I'm just going to forego that whole thing. What's going on here? I had just troubled days today. Oh, boy. Anyway, so I'm going to forego this whole Christian thing. We're getting rid of this whole thing. And we're just going to talk this morning. So it's an auspicious week in the United States, and lots of people are holding their breath. Let's not do that. Let's spend a little bit of time today, right here and right now, centering ourselves together and taking breaths. And then I'll tell you what I said before. All right, so let's gather together our hearts. Take a breath in. So many of you showed up this morning already having centered yourselves and had spent some time in relaxation on your interior. And we're going to do a little more of that centering this morning because that's what this purpose is today. I titled the talk this morning, Sex or Reading About Sex. Experience, direct experience, or belief? Do you want to eat an orange or read about an orange? Do you want to experience the divine inside yourself, for yourself, in the now, together, today, and this week? Or do you want to just continue in belief? There's an inscription above a doorway. In Greece, it's St. Paul's Monastery, and it says, if you die before you die, then when you die, you will not die. If you die before you die, then when you die, you will not die. Dying the little death is the experience of the divine. That's how we access it. We die a little death daily, and our centering, when our minds stop telling us who we are and what we're doing, and it gives us a centered sense of peace. And that centered sense of peace is collective. It's collected inside you, and it's collective among us. We people of the centering, we people of the connection, we people of the oneness of being, we people of the infinite light, have a choice to channel that light inside ourselves and thus bring more into the world. The more peace we bring inside ourselves, the less anxiety we feel, and the more peace we bring into the world. We can't control what's going to happen. Maybe nothing will happen. Maybe we don't know. What we do know is our own hearts. And I'm going to see if I can find something in my teleprompter script here about Plato that I wanted to read to you. And then we're going to come around to Jesus in a minute. Let's see. This is before Jesus' time. Either death is a state of nothingness and utter consciousness, or, as is said, there is a change and migration of the soul from this world to another. Now, if death be of such a nature, I say that to die is to gain, for eternity is then only a single night. Before Jesus, people were talking about this. Plato talked about this. Another Greek. And I say that because Greece is an early center of the development of religion in the West. And it strongly influenced Christianity and its writings. But I'm going to dip back in here for a second into a story Jesus told and modify it, of course. Let's see here. This is what the presence of heaven is like. A gardener plants a tomato seed in the ground. Night and day, whether or not the gardener sleeps or is awake, the seed sprouts on its own and grows, though the gardener doesn't know how. All by itself the seed produces and set into the soil. All by itself the seed grows when it's set into the soil. It roots, it sprouts, it stalks, it spreads, it flowers. The bee comes, the fruit's produced, and then she comes to pick the tomato full of seeds. A single seed of intent planted in your heart, in the soil of your soul, with attention, because the gardener pays attention during the day to the garden, but not while they're asleep. With intention, the tomato grows, and then when you sleep, it grows on its own. That's the crazy thing about this. A little bit of time invested, you get the fruit of the Spirit to eat. That's how it works. And when we gather together and spend time in centered prayer, we're not just one tomato plant. Have you ever noticed how plants gather together? In my yard, I've got a lot of goldenrod. The goldenrod, it just grows together in stalks and stalks and stalks with lots of seed heads. And it supports, each plant supports another plant. The same could be true of any plant in the wild or in your garden. When we gather together in our centeredness, we support each other. That's all I'm saying about that. So I'm going to ask you again. Do you want to read about sex or do you want to have sex? Do you want to read about what it could be like, what the theologian says it is like, what the theologians say heaven is like? Or do you want to experience it for yourself? Funny thing is, Jesus used words to explain it too, because he couldn't really give it away as much as I'm sure he wanted to. He could show it to people, but they had to find it themselves inside themselves. You need to plant that seed intended. And the last thing I want to talk about this morning is sleeping and waking. Whether the gardener knows it or not, asleep or awake, the seed grows. The seed is in the soil. The soil exists whether the gardener is awake or asleep. Are you asleep or are you awake? Are you a seed unsprouted or are you a seed sprouted? It's time for us to wake up. Now's the time. All right, my friends. I'm going to ask you to join me again for a few minutes. Let's center ourselves together. As for me, I'm going to be focusing up here in my crown chakra, right down to my first chakra, and I'm going to be breathing between them with a little stoppage in my heart, right here in my heart, because this is what America needs the most. Well, the whole world needs this the most. But we're in crisis over here, so I'm going to focus a little on us today. But the whole world's in crisis with COVID right here. So let's spend a moment together in this collection. Well, my friends, I am hesitant to say, but I will. If this video moved you or touched you or made you think, please subscribe or like the video. And thanks to you who came twice today to not church Sundays after I made a mistake earlier this morning. So thanks, my friends. Anybody have anything they want to say today? Any comments they want to make? I was trying to make a joke. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you. Yeah. Maybe conditions are here for us to wake up. Yeah, I think so. I think it is. I think there's a lot of reasons why it's time to wake up. And I think that a lot of people are waking up. And I hope that we continue to wake up and love each other and not follow the belief systems of hate and exclusion. Follow the experience of the presence of the divine. Rob, thank you. Love, agreed. John, LOL. Thank you, Peter. Time to wake up. How many generations until a fully enlightened humanity? I have no idea. Maybe one, maybe ours. Fully? I don't know. But ours is the first generation that has a possibility. Science is changing spirituality globally. Mysticism is in every single hospital where they have surgical beds where people are being resuscitated. They're mystical temples of divine ascendance. And then there's all the people who naturally have a connection to God inside their hearts. There's tens, hundreds of millions of us, everybody even. But now, in this time, maybe now, even in the face of the turmoil, the last bit of struggle that we're facing over here in the USA, maybe that'll help us too. Keep the push of the human heart back aimed at God, to plant the seed inside our souls, to let it grow with tending, and to let it grow on its own, and let our roots touch beneath the soil. Because that's the other thing that happens when plants grow together. Their roots are intermingled under the soil. Thank you, everybody, for your gifts this morning. And to those who gave gifts earlier that when I had verbal trouble with my microphone. There are no mistakes. There are only choices. I was craving an orange, so I'm having one. It's the difference between eating and thinking. Or reading The Age of Aquarius talks about global shift, discomfort, and growth. Yeah, we're in global shift, all right, where that's happening. Peter, hate is not the same as revulsion. Oh, hate is learned. Revulsion is as natural as breathing. Sure, that is totally true. I've had revulsion, and I love that word. As a matter of fact, I had revulsion just last week when I was out running and was suddenly accompanied by this beautiful dog who ran with me for miles as my companion, and at one point found some offal and rolled very deeply in the offal in order to mask her scent. She smelled like death, and it was a revulsion to my nose. And revulsion can also be not just experiential through the senses, but of belief systems. And that's totally true. They can be revulsed. Thanks, Ursa Major, for that. I've been reading about the solar system and the universe and how much of the Bible correlates to astrology. Well, that's interesting. You know, in the divinity school at Yale, the ceiling of the refectory was covered with symbols of astrology. Now, astrology and Christianity had a bad breakup. They had a bad breakup a long time ago, but I always found it interesting that astrology was painted into the ceiling above every meal I had in there. So there's some connection for sure. And Ali would love to hear about that sometime. Jesus is represented by Orion, and the 12 apostles are all the zodiac. How cool. Orion. Well, isn't it interesting that Betelgeuse has been fading in and out, being a star in the Orion star system, constellation. This whole past year, there's been trouble with Betelgeuse. The strife pushes all. Some who are ready fall toward love. Others fall toward fear. Wheat from the chaff. We each have a choice, Fred. Yep. Fall towards love. Keep leaning toward love. Don't lean toward fear. Center your hearts in the oneness of being. Experience the presence for yourself. You don't need an intermediary at all. Not ever did you ever. You need only to see inside yourself to find the light, the infinite light that is already there, and lean towards it. Fall towards it. Thanks, Fred. Is the love of God quite alien or exotic in comparison to the human emotion of love, or similar? It's very exotic. It's quite alien. It's not the same thing. In the Upanishads, if I have this correct, in the Upanishads, there's a question, a decision even, rather, not to identify Brahma or Atman as love, not to identify Brahma or Atman as love, because of the human confusion between human love and divine love. It's It's your best orgasm times 10 quadrillion. So much so that yourself vanishes in the moment of the flash. It's so infinitely larger, so other, so alien, so not here. Not here. It's the negative theology of the Kabbalah. It's the negative theology of pseudo-Dionysus of Christianity. Whatever this is here is not what it is there. By comparison, incomparable. But human love is the best we have here. And it has value too, because it is also made from the treasure house of love. That same treasure house that is a quadrillion times bigger, that's the trickle down we get here on earth. And that's why love matters so much, because it is the treasure of heaven. And when we love our families and our friends and even our enemies, we build a core of love inside us that is recognizable to us when we die. Which, of course, we now know when you die the little death, you don't die at all. Thanks, everybody, for your gifts this morning. Thanks, Kelly and David. Checking the time. I highly recommend the book, Fred says, and he, yes, very much. The Resurrection of Jesus by Adyashanti. Some of us have been reading that, and I hope to talk about that a little more. Actually, if you've read that book, please come to Mystic Tea Salon today. Get the link at my website, peterpanagore.love. Meet us there at the top of the hour, because I really want to talk about it this week. I promised we'd talk about it last week, but things were crazy in America last week. Not that they're not now, but we're kind of used to it. So, yes, great book, Resurrection of Jesus by Adyashanti. Super important. Shifting Christianity away from dogma and doctrine, democratizing spirituality, democratizing mysticism, democratizing your personal connection to the divine. That's what that book helps you do. Yeah. Aya, as we say here. Interesting, because Orion has a violent myth, but Jesus is not violent. That is interesting. I always loved Orion. Wow, Jesus, shining light. You certainly stimulated the 77-year-old carcass into life. I'm away for a cold shower. Love and laughter from Scotland. Oh, man. That's funny. You're welcome, David. I believe so much of the Bible is actually the star constellation and parables that reflect the equinox, darkness, winter, and light, and spring rejuvenation and resurrection. Yeah, there's definitely thematic overlays of that in the Bible that I see too. Fred, it's the doorway to divine love. It's the doorway to divine love. Everything I said a minute ago, it's the doorway to divine love. Resurrecting Jesus by Adyashanti. After being in the presence of divine love, nothing in this world satisfies. Yeah, the world becomes flat. It becomes flat and two-dimensional. And nothing satisfies but that. And then you desire it with all of your heart. When you desire it with all of your heart, it satisfies, even though the longing remains. It's a paradox. Like rain down on me. Rain is love from heaven for the earth. Like rain, that's right. The rain from above that waters your soul, that waters your garden, feeds your tomato, and helps it grow. What do you want? To read about sex? Or to have sex? Do you want the presence of the divine love inside your heart? Or just believe it instead of experiencing it? Dogma reversed. Am God. Oh, that's funny, Fred. In English, that's true. Our karma will run over their dogmas. Yeah. The light always wins. Always has. Always has. Always will. All right. Sent a link for everyone to read. Please read up. All right, my friends. Thank you, everybody, for your help this morning. I want to make sure that we continue the conversation if people are interested, if you have comments to make. Let's see. So you can have that total desire for the divine and still be married? Well, it makes it a little more difficult for the spouse. That's true. That is the truth. Yep. That's the truth. The utter love for the divine supersedes all, everything, everywhere. But it also is manifest in love and human love. And it becomes the lens through which all human love is experienced. Even spousal love gets experienced through it. And love of children, and grandchildren, and friends, it gets lensed through it too. And the clearer the lens becomes, the more easily it is to love imperfectly, because I have definitely loved imperfectly on earth. There's no doubt about that. Fortunately, earth is not my home forever, nor yours. This place is full of stones and roots to trip over. And awakening and realization, and even look at Jesus. Enlightenment didn't make much of a difference in terms of struggle, in terms of relationships. Jesus had a little trouble with his relationships too. Yeah, it's very difficult, says Ellie. We love you so much, says Tamara. Thank you. Love God above all things, not me. If ever you mistake me for the message, then you've made a mistake. I just follow. I'm just a student. I'm in pursuit. I am small compared to infinite, and that ain't no joke. But thank you, Tamara. Love you guys too. How do you satisfy the spouse when you have total desire for the divine? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. We do the best we can. I aim my heart at God and love in the world the best I'm able. And it's not just the people close to me. It's this whole non-attachment thing. When she says nothing satisfies, nothing satisfies. No thing. Not even self. Not body. Not anything. Not anyone. It's part of the loneliness of it. In the world, but not of it, said Paul. But we can still love. I do still love. And I try to satisfy the best I'm able. Good morning, Wild Owl. So when I'm more centered, family, including our doggy Millie, all seem to demand more. The light is attractive, the world is in need. Kristen, that's totally true. The clearer you become, the more they try to feed off you. And that is just the nature of it. And so what you can do about that is let it flow through you and not try to collect it. Because you're never going to collect enough to give away. There'll always be more that's wanted. And so a secret of this is when you get out of the way enough, it flows, and then you don't have to be drained because you're tied into the tap eternal, the artesian well of the soul. The living water flows through and you never run out. The more centered you become, the more people want the light and the living water. The more centered you become, the more it flows. The less self there is, the more you die to yourself, the wider the flow becomes. And then it becomes not a burden at all. Give me your burden, Jesus said. And this is how we give the burden away. By getting out of the way and not carrying it ourselves, allowing the flow to come through us. Because there's so many gifts that come with this. It's a whole new way of living without believing, just by being. In marriage, we die a little bit every day. May the practice be blessed. Same with kids. The more you give of yourself to your kids, it's a practice of selflessness. Marriage is a practice of selflessness, for sure. Or it should be anyway. Between two. God help us to die before we die. Amen to that, Vladimir. I grew up Catholic. As a child, I learned to believe. I didn't know that it was possible to know God until one day as an adult, I met someone who did. That's true. The church really has a hard time teaching the knowing of God because they've kind of rejected that. Not everybody. I mean, there are mystics, but they were troublemakers and sometimes killed. I used to watch you years ago in the mornings before work in Maine on Channel 6, I believe. Hey, Maine man Dave, that was me, 207, Dave 207, that was me on Channel 6 for 15 years every day, telling stories, sacred stories. Underneath all those stories, mysticism, near-death experience, direct experience of God, and all the stuff we talk about here. Thanks for chiming in there, Maine man. Where have you posted it, Ellie? Love the God source in everyone you love and embrace divinity in all relationships. And how do you do that? You do that by getting out of the way. You do that by centering yourself. You do that by being in the presence. That's how it all works. Everything arises from that. Everything good in the world arises from the divine connection and experience inside yourself, including the death of your egoic mind, of your false self, of my false self, of my egoic mind. The daily death, the little death, lets the light flow through. Get some dry lips here. Let's take a drink of water here. Thank you for the great stories. Thank you, David. Thank you. I had fun writing them. I had fun working at Channel 6 and Channel 2. It was a great crew there, and I was appreciative of the opportunity to tell stories professionally, to try to be a cultural influencer for the good. That's kind of what I'm trying to do here. When we share the light, is the truth of beauty, it's innately food for the soul, and we crave it. Yep. Okay, my friends, how are we doing over here? This is a good way to look at marriage. At Rob. Whatever you said there, Rob, I missed it. Well, my friends, where are we at? I keep saying that. That's well, so are we done here? I don't want to keep you longer than we need to, but I'll let you know that Not Church is coming up next Sunday. And